This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Pseudoarchaeology Podcast, a show that uncovers what's fact, what's fake, and what's fun in the crazy world of pseudo-archaeology. Hello and welcome to the Pseudoarchaeology Podcast, episode 165. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and tonight I review the Cosmic Summit, putting pseudo into pseudoarchaeology since 2023. Okay, hello and welcome back, friends, enemies, whoever's listening to this, probably a few enemies, maybe, because of the whole Cosmic Summit thing, which I'll get into in a minute. But so check this out, man. This is kind of fun. This is kind of interesting. So Flint Dibble of I went on Joe Rogan and made Graham Hancock look like a big tool fame. Flint invited me onto his YouTube channel, which is Archaeology with Flint Dibble. And he's been doing a series of live streams where he's been having real archaeologists on to just talk about different aspects of archaeology. And a lot of the time, so talking about pseudoarchaeology. And we had been going back and forth on texting each other about, Andrew, you got to come on my show. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I totally want to. And we were finally able to figure it out. And we got the date set, which was, I'm recording this on June 26th. It's a Thursday. I think I went on Sunday, just this past Sunday. So that's 25, 20, what, the 22nd or something like that? Yeah, right in there. So it's just been a few days. But so we both had our schedules open for that. But what's funny is we couldn't figure out what to talk about at first, because in a way we're so similar. And we had a moment of, God, what do we talk about? Because it's not going to be any fun if I just go, hey, what about this pseudoarchaeology thing? And then Flint just goes, yeah. And then he goes, what about this pseudoarchaeology thing? I go, yeah. But he came up with it. He's, hey, man, the Cosmic Summit is this weekend. And I'm like, oh my God, we got to do this, right? So special thanks to Flint Dibble for coming up with this one. This was genius, you guys. So first of all, what is the Cosmic Summit and what's the whole deal here? All right. So the Cosmic Summit is the get together of pseudoarchaeologists and pseudoscientists. I mean, you guys, this is ground zero for foolishness, right? It's so over the top that first Flint and I did a YouTube live stream video that ended up being over 3 hours long, because we had so much to talk about, so much to laugh about. Like, most of it is just us laughing. And Flint would show some images from the conference and we would just grill and laugh. Again, I've put the link to that live stream at the bottom of this podcast, but good God, you guys, I will say, we figured out that we were going to talk about this several days before the event. And in honesty, I wanted to see as much of it as I possibly could. And so I watched a bunch of their videos. So funnily enough, this Cosmic Summit is very similar in organization to going to an archaeology conference. It's the same thing where if I go to something like the Society for American Archaeology, the SAAs, I'm going to go there with a couple thousand other archaeologists, and we're going to go to a big hotel in a big city, and it's going to be several days long, and everyone presents papers, does presentations, and talks with other professionals. It's just like these kind of meetings. Any professional organization does this kind of stuff. But instead of real archaeology, this is the conference for pseudo babble bullshit, right? It's the one, you guys. And I have to say, I'm repulsed yet attracted to it at the same time. I'm like, oh, I kind of want to go. But as you'll find out, it's actually not worth going. And I'm bummed about that because you want to go to have a laugh. So it was a couple days over a long weekend, and they just had a bunch of people present a bunch of pseudo stuff. So while neither Flynn or I went to the event, of course, we were at home. The first part that you'll see about this thing is full of grift. And what I mean by that is the whole thing is a money-making machine for like the organizers. That's what they're trying to do, right? So every aspect of this has money to it. It costs $500 minimum to get in. I think the actual number was like $465. That's way more than any conference I've ever been to, right? And it just went up from there. You could add extra doodads to it. The high-end pass was like $2,600 or something like this. So it's just a total grift. And for what? As we'll find, for nothing. So they also had a live stream of the whole event that you could buy for $75, or you could get $25 off and get it for just $50. Flint and I were seriously considering like buying a $50 pass, but we didn't for two reasons. First, because we found a ton of stuff online anyways of recent stuff of all the presenters. And this is very similar to real archaeology. Like if you didn't want to go to a conference and see me present, you can likely find me online or being filmed somewhere presenting basically my same stuff, right? Like for me, I obviously focus on the Carblanca pools on the cenotes of Belize. And yeah, you might not see my very most recent thing, but if you saw a recording of me from a year ago or 6 months ago, it's going to be the same deal. So Flint and I found a bunch of recordings from all these fools, right? So I spent the good 48 hours before we talked just watching all this crap. Like I have an iPad, right? I got an iPad mini, and I just set that up, and as I'd be washing dishes, I'd be doing chores, and I had this stuff on, just letting it bathe over me. All these guys talking about all the classics. Atlantis, comet impact, ancient super civilization, technology of the ancient past is way too complex. We could never understand. Basically everything my entire show is about. So I did want to be, in seriousness, like up to date on what these guys were talking about. So I think Flint and I really did do our due diligence, right? So there was a bunch of stuff online that we could look at anyways. And the other reason we didn't buy our such a deal $50 pass was some of the stuff from the actual meeting started to bleed onto YouTube, and the actual quality of the live stream pass was horrible, you guys. It was like terrible camera work. You couldn't understand what they were saying. It was really like the images were really rough. Like it was obviously a total fail in terms of that technology. And I could have told them that live streaming from an event like that is almost impossible. I think they kind of know it. But again, it was just for the grift. It was just to sell those tickets, right? Oh, you can see this from home. But really, you can't, because the quality was such shit. And as we'll find, it didn't really even matter again, because the actual presentations were so terrible. Like, I was also shocked about that. You've heard me bitch about real archaeologists doing terrible presentations. Guess what, my friends? Pseudoarchaeologists do even worse presentations. They were so boring, you guys. I was like, oh my God, because again, at least I want a little fun. At least I want, you're going to talk about aliens. Give me some cool slides and give me some cool stories. Give me something. These fools just droned on about drivelly pseudoscience horror shit, and it was just boring. So anyway, armed with all that, Flint and I just went to town and just burned these guys, right? Just tore them a new one, because they deserve it. Because what I would say is, in looking at all these people, and there were about 25 separate presenters, I think. Oh, I will also say this event was held in North Carolina. It was held in Greensboro. It's the third one. This is the 2025 one. They did it in 2023, 2024, and 2025. And I would divide these people roughly into three categories. Category one was grifters, right? Category one is people who are there to make money, who are there to make a buck, who are there to sell their book, who are there to just take a chunk of the house, basically. So grifters, and that's the huge portion of these guys. They're selling their stuff. They're trying to get likes on their social media, that kind of thing. The second category is just weirdos. There are a handful of those guys who presented who are just weird, who I think really believe some of this stuff, just some strange dudes. And then finally, the smallest category, there are one or two serious scholars in there who are just, I don't know if they exactly knew what they're getting into. They wanted to talk about something kind of on the edge or a little bit serious, but, they weren't good presenters either. So in watching grifters, weirdos, and a little handful of serious scholars, I went between feeling sad for them because you watch some of these and you're just, oh, man. And the other thing I felt was just like, this is so pathetic. There's a patheticness to it where it's the same reaction. You're like, oh. And then I guess third, it's just boring. Like you just feel tired. So if you want to feel sad, pathetic, and bored, I highly recommend the Cosmic Summit. To add insult to injury, the Cosmic Summit is so lame and so pathetic that even Graham Hancock doesn't show up anymore. Even for Graham Hancock's like, look, I talk some serious bullshit, but those guys are crazy, right? And you can tell, because again, Graham Hancock's no fool, right? So he's distancing himself from these suckers. Man, when we come back, what did they talk about specifically at the Cosmic Summit? Hello and welcome back to the Pseudoarchaeology Podcast, episode 165. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and I have been sitting here bashing the Cosmic Summit. How dare I? I'm just a bad person. So what did they talk about? Okay. So it was over again a handful of days. I think it was 3 days, maybe 4. Again, the time-wise, this is very similar to like a real archaeology conference. And it's going to go like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that kind of thing. What were the themes? Now, I actually looked at their list, right? They did have their program online, which is nice, and which is what any group like this would do. We in Real Archaeology do this too. And so I actually read every sort of title and kind of one line, byline of what each of these things was going to be about. And I've crammed them into about, 10 categories. And let's say, again, there was maybe, 25 presentations or something like that. Now, of all of these, the first one that had several presentations on it, of course, was, wait for it, the Younger Dryas Comet Impact Hypothesis. I know you're shocked. And as I go through these, what's funny is this is also like a rogues gallery of a bunch of my old shows. When did I do Younger Dryas? I think it's Pseudoarchaeology 117, if you want to look back. But what I will say in defense of the Younger Dryas Comet Impact Hypothesis, I know you're like, what? Defense? What do you mean? Of all the stupid, crazy, over-the-top, weird stuff that these pseudoscientists and weirdos talked about, this is the one that has aspects to it that are true, right? So this is not like an Atlantis or Ancient Aliens, stuff that's just purely fantasy. Younger Dryas Comet Impact, has aspects of science and truth to it, right? So there was a time period called the Younger Dryas. It's right at the end of the last ice age. So you have the ice age and then it starts to warm up a little bit, but then it goes back down and is like cold for several more hundred years. That's the Younger Dryas. It's like this cold snap right at the end of the ice age. And that is the time when like the megafauna, like the woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, all these, you guys, it's when all those started to die out, right? Notice I say started to die out. Now, in the early 2000s, in Real Archaeology, we talked about this. We were like, maybe it was a comet that hit Earth and destroyed like the megafauna, right? And there's also other bits and bobs to that, like, oh, maybe the Clovis period hunters, like something happened to those guys, or it enabled them to do what they do, whatever. The point being that big comet hits and changes a lot of stuff. Now, in like 2005, 2007, that had a little bit more weight to it. And I was a fan of this. I thought it was kind of cool. But I kept an open mind for facts and data because that's how I roll. That's how real archaeology goes. And I will say in the intervening 20 years, the new archaeology that's been found tends to not support this. Again, the younger, driest time period's a real thing. It got cold. That's real. But did the huge comet hit and change the global environment or global weather patterns, or do a major shift for the creatures on Earth at the time? It really looks like the answer is no. And we have to be honest about that, right? We have to look at the data. They have several things they always harp on because they just cherry pick data. One is the black mats. And the black mat idea is this layer of stratigraphy that's basically, you find the megafauna underneath the black mat, and then there's the black mat layer, and then there's no more megafauna. That used to look a little bit more true like 20 years ago, but we as good archaeologists did more research, and then it was like, you don't really find the black mat worldwide at all. This doesn't really go exactly with this time period. It's all messed up. And also, you don't see all the megafauna dying at the same time. Some die around that time. Some still live and die several thousand years later. There's none of this weaves together in a nice story at all. And in fact, it weaves less and less as time goes on. Now, they do have at the summit, may I call it the summit, they do have a group called like the Comet Interest Group or something like that. Comet Study Group, I forget. But this group, if they knew how to do real research, they could, but they don't, because they're tied to their same old pseudo-archaeological bullshit. So it's really sad because these people could be doing good research. They could be using their energy. And these people can be very energetic about this stuff. And that's cool and very interested. But if they knew how to use like real scientific techniques, they would stop and actually do real science. They could really add something. You don't need a PhD to do this. You don't need a PhD to read scientific papers and try and put things together. And they could, but they don't. They waste all our time because they're not professionals, right? Notice I didn't say, and they need PhDs. No, they don't do this in a professional manner. They waste all our time trying to show us that, yes, there was some huge comet and yes, there was a super civilization 12,000 years ago. No, that's all bullshit. What I would do if I was them is just go back to square one, take the evidence that they do have and start building on that, and maybe show evidence for small local comet or asteroid strikes at the time. Because you could find something like that where, no, it's not a worldwide phenomenon, but maybe it's something that mattered in like a 200-mile radius or something like that. That could be cool. Again, this is one of their big problems in pseudoarchaeology. They start with a story that they cram down your throat, and then they cherry pick some data to try and make it seem true. And it's not. We in real archaeology go the other way around. We look at data, and then we pull our story from the data, the story that fits the data best. It's really that simple. And if they would do that, if they would just do a 180, they could really add. Like, it's really sad. I always feel sad, but they play their same bullshit game, and it's tiring. It's boring. They're obviously at the edge of, they just don't really understand what they're doing, and they could get better at this. I give this little 2 cents a lot. I've said this about Graham Hancock before. It's like, he could actually make a good show if he wanted. He could actually synthesize some real archaeology and do some real stories of the past, but he's too chicken, as they all are. It's just too bad. Anyway, they obviously talked about that and the ancient super civilization, blah, blah, blah. They had some stuff on sacred geometry, which is some of my least favorite. I'm like, oh God, sacred geometry. That means alignments and all that bullshit. Again, you can have alignments like at Stonehenge, right? Of the longest day of the year, shortest day of the year, that kind of stuff. Sure. But 9 times out of 10, and I've said this elsewhere, right? Alignments are just a waste of everyone's time. They have nothing to do with reality. So they did some sacred geometry stuff. You can go watch that as much as you want. I'll let it go. Then they had this weird one on Egyptian vases. Basically, the idea is Egyptian vases are made so precise that ancient technology could have never done this, friends. Yes, it must have been something beyond the technology that we've yet found. No, just no. So many times with this pseudo-archaeological bullshit, it's just like the answer is no. Don't waste my time. The answer is no. This is ludicrous. And they would like some guy, he had some vases and he would spin them. These are old like stone vases. And the other thing, I was looking at these and they look kind of fake to me. And also for him to have these vases, it would be illegal. He would have had to buy them on the illegal market. But just as an archaeologist, I'm looking at these, I'm like, these look like forgeries. And again, I wasn't there, but just my spidey sense says forgeries. And no matter what are you doing? So he's saying that making Egyptian vases was too precise. What a waste of time. The answer is no. You have stuff on basically that ancient Egypt was just too complex, right? The vases go into this. The idea of how could they possibly move these stones? Human beings couldn't do that unless they used sound, right? And so you had the whole they used subwoofers and I guess tweeters and every single kind of really audio equipment. They went to Best Buy. The Egyptians, little known fact, they had a Best Buy and they used the vibrations. Anytime you hear the term vibration, walk away quickly, friends. To move the stones through all that waste of time. The ancient technology of the Egyptians is too complex. There was stuff about plasma, using plasma. There were plasma orbs and plasma columns. And it's just like stuff that you see at a 5th grade science expo, like that kind of stuff. Those little like circular electric balls that you can like touch, those like glass balls. Those are like fun. But they had some point to it. I don't know. It was weird. So something about the Knights Templar. That's always the Rosicrucian thing where they angle on alchemy. I'm like, alchemy? You're gonna hold on to that one? Why don't they have a little olive branch to real science? And this would make them look better too, where they would go, hey man, look, we still believe that there was a super civilization and we still believe that you can use sound to move stones, but we're going to let the alchemy go. See, they could do it, but they won't. Alchemy is taking other elements and making them into gold. Ancient buildings being too complex, friends. How did the ancients do it? They were smarter than us? Oh, God. Oh, of course. What's underneath the pyramids of Giza? You may have noticed in my last podcast, I talked about this. This is the SAR data thing where they got some SAR data. And I guess they turned the SAR satellite to 11 and just got some weird feedback. It looks like a graph of like feedback from like a Van Halen concert. You're like, what? But they're like, oh yes, shafts 4,000 feet down, all that crap, pointless waste of time. Oh, and then of course, you gotta leave the worst for last. You've heard it here first, but you didn't. If you've gone to the summit, you would have already heard this, friends. But I hope you're sitting. Atlantis has been found. Yes, I can't believe they had the balls to announce it. This is huge. Atlantis found. Yes. They unveiled a new movie called Atlantica. Now, I did not see the whole movie. I just saw a couple clips and I saw people talking about it. I did go over that other Atlantis movie called The Atlantis Puzzle back in podcast number 149. Now, the Atlantis Puzzle movie had a terrible ending. Its look and overall production value was great. I got to give it to the Atlantis Puzzle. They had great production value. And sadly, in a way, the guy who made it obviously had some smarts and stuff, but just is wasting his time. The Atlantis puzzle looked great, but the Atlantis puzzle is trying to tell us that Atlantis is the Reshat structure. You can go look back at that, which is just an awful, stupid, idiotic, pointless waste of time. For Atlantica, I don't know if I can say this due to copyright, but I'm just going to be bold, friends. It's time for boldness. They think Atlantis is kind of in Spain, around the corner from the Straits of Gibraltar, basically. I know I've said too much. I do fear assassins at this moment. I've told you too much. But yeah, that's a new thing. And the film itself, from what I can tell, looks just pretty bad. It's not, the production values. It ain't no Atlantis puzzle, dude. And there were people commenting online about how much it sucked. That's not good when you're doing a Cosmic Summit and people are commenting live how bad it sucks. And they also commented how bad the live video streaming and audio was too, because it was terrible. It was almost, I could not quite even understand what they were saying 100% of the time, which was very sad. I need to cry for a moment, friends. When we come back, I'll dry my tears and we'll wrap this up. Hello, and welcome back to the Pseudoarchaeology Podcast, episode 165. I'm your host, one more time, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and we have been discussing, well, I have been making serious fun of the Cosmic Summit 2025. The third Cosmic Summit, I'll have you know, without Graham Hancock now. So what did I get from this? What did I get from my 48 to 72 hours of watching a lot of video on this stuff, you guys? I prepped for this, looking at their website, looking into the bios of the various people who presented. I wanted to learn. And I wanted to do my due diligence. So what did I learn? What did I notice? It's actually, I'm really glad in a weird backwards way that I did this, because what I learned was really key to the overall running of the pseudoarchaeological world. The very most interesting thing that I learned and noticed is, number one with a bullet, is that all these guys are cosplaying. This is a huge cosplay fest. It might as well just be Comic-Con, right? These guys are not real archaeologists. They're not real professors. They're not me. But they want to be me so bad they can taste it. And I never noticed that before. I never understood that until bathing in this stuff for a few days, right? They all do the same thing. It's weird because they act like they think professors act, if that makes sense. And it's funny to me as a real archaeologist and a real professor to watch how wrong they get it. They're so far off because they're ignorant of how real archaeologists do things and how real professors do things. Notice I didn't say that they're stupid, because some of these people are very intelligent. So again, somebody like a Graham Hancock who didn't happen to be there. Graham Hancock's an intelligent dude. I would never say he wasn't. But all of these guys are ignorant of how professors and archaeologists do things. So it's a funny little play to watch where when you watch them talk, and I watched many of their sort of live streams in this thing where they'd be like a Zoom meeting where there'd be like 4 people. They talk about their papers all the time. They're like, I will soon be publishing a paper. And the next guy will be like, yes, I'm publishing too. I have a paper from 2019 and I read this other paper. Yes, I did. And I was doing my research. They talk about their research all the time. Yes, I was doing my research and I have some data in my research. There's another key term, data. I have some data in my research that I put in my paper. And yourself, it's like unfortunately, there were no British accents, but they were cosplaying what all of us would think British archaeologists talked about in the smoking room in 1892. That's what it was like. They needed their smoking jackets, their pipes, and their British accents. That's what they were doing. It's a cosplay, you guys. It's hilarious. And I'm sitting there going, I don't talk like that. Real archaeologists just don't talk about papers that much. That's weird, right? It's so funny, you guys. It's a cosplay. So that is by far the number one thing I noticed. Just a bunch of fakery. Speaking of fakery, the second thing is how much grift. These are just grifters. Again, I said there's also weirdos and then a handful of kind of real, but who don't quite get it, scholars. But by far, these are grifters. They are selling stuff. They are trying to make money from this event. That is the number one reason they do this. Real archaeologists don't do it for the money. We don't. I joke about it all the time, but going to a conference is a money losing venture, right? I don't get money from the conference. I have to pay. You've heard me bitch about how much it costs. And some of the real conferences, and none of them are expensive as the summit, right? None of the real ones are. But even so, I make no money off this. But these guys, that's why they're there. They're there to grift. I mean, in the very beginning, if you go on their website, the very first thing they say, and I think I had the quote down. I think they say, this is literally their quote: "This event will be the most mind-expanding event on Earth." Really? Well, that's very impressive. See, it's just, they start with that and they have this guy come out and, yes, this is a message for you. Oh, for only $19.95. I swear to God, you guys, that's how it goes. So they cosplay and they're full of grift. The other thing they do, of course, is all their quote unquote research, which is otherwise known as, I believe the scientific term is dicking around and wasting time, is magical thinking. Right? They start with feelings, not facts. They start with a story that they want to shove down your throat, and they don't look at the facts. And notice that how their story has never changed in 150 years. All these stories you can trace back to the 1880s or further. Atlantis, comet impact of 10,000 years ago, alchemy, right? It's all the same old, tired, boring bullshit. And actually, that was another thing I noticed, and I was surprised. I don't even say this to be cruel. I say it in surprise. How boring their presentations are. These people are crap presenters. And now I don't want to say that they were all like this, but the ones I saw, they showed very little respect for their audience. They dressed like crap. Again, not all, but some. They didn't seem to have much prepared. They were shitty public speakers. They tended to just drone with this idea of they were so self-important, which I'll get to later. Just boring, you guys. You don't believe me? Go online, watch some of it. Listen to some of them. Proof's in the pudding. In relationship to this, the next thing I noticed is how disorganized they were. They were utterly disorganized, both in their presentations and just in their quote unquote quote research, because they don't know how to research and they're not really doing research. So there's no way to really build on previous research because there's no previous research to build on, if that makes sense. If you're trying to prove alchemy or Atlantis or any of this stuff, you need to do basic research, and then you need to check your research. You need to try and disprove your research, but they don't. They never get that far. Because they do that, they do what I like to call Groundhog Day science or Groundhog Day research. Copyright 2025, Andrew Kinkella. Meaning that every few years, someone new rediscovers Atlantis or rediscovers the idea of a comet impact or rediscovers alchemy or whatever. And because none of these guys, they're just grifters and they've never done real research in the first place, there's nothing to build on. You can't build on what a pseudoarchaeologist did in 1985 or 1995 or 2005, right? Because they're just blabbing bullshit, right? You can't go back and, build on previous research, build on previous work. It's just, it flails. It's utterly pathetic. So they do this Groundhog Day research, right? It's just the same thing over and over. It doesn't build. There's nothing new. There's nothing of interest. Sadly. They are so self-congratulatory to an odd degree. I would say with the self-congratulatoriness, they also have bold, blind overconfidence, and they just kiss each other's ass. And look, have I ever seen a grad student kiss the ass of a real archaeologist or something? Sure, that happens, but not to this degree. It's something I just really noticed, you guys, right? I'm just new to this. I'm like, oh my God. At one point they were talking about how one guy was an autodidact. And autodidact just means you learn stuff on your own. You're just a solo learner. But they used it with the idea of it also meant genius. They were using it slightly wrong, but whatever. They had the connotation of a genius. And they were literally going, You're the biggest autodidact I've ever seen. And then the other guy would be like, no, kind sir, you are a true autodidact. And then they go back and forth, just kissing each other's ass. It was weird. They just kept going, oh, no. And then they do that fake modesty thing where they'd go, oh, no, oh, yes, oh, no, yes, no, it's not me. Oh, but yes, it is. Oh, but please say more. Right? Just this back and forth vomitous, oh my God, self-congratulatory, festival of masturbation. Good God. Oh, also as they cosplay, also notice this, as they cosplay, they use their funky jargon. They'll use sciencey terms, but they don't quite know what they mean because they're ignorant of the actual term. So they piecemeal them together into a word salad. They do this they'll do big, long sentences. If you ever watch this, you'll see them talk for a really long time and you'll be like, I don't have any idea what they just said. They literally had a sentence that went on for 5 minutes. They didn't say anything. They will never answer blunt questions with a blunt answer. It's just this wiggly thing that goes on and on. So and again, it's part of the cosplay. They think professors talk in jargon. Crappy professors do talk in jargon. Good ones don't. Good ones know what they're talking about, can talk to a general audience. But these guys, they're cosplaying with their jargon. They always, as their backstory, use this idea that they've been wronged. Like what I'm doing right now, because I'm just making fun of them. They would be like, oh, big archaeology has wronged me, right? They do this sort of what I would call the cult of the outsider, right? I'm going to tell you how it really is because I'm outside the system and the system keeps people down. And I am a free thinker, right? There was so much of that goes into their self-congratulatory crap. After the autodidact bullshit, they do the like, such a free thinker. You're a real gladiator, friend. They're uncritical of their own work, right? That comes throughout this, right? They just cherry pick a few data points and then don't deal with all the other stuff that shows that they're wrong. And then if you go, by the way, this one data point shows that you're wrong, then they go, you're just wronging me. You're part of big archaeology. I'm an outsider, so I don't have to deal with those data points that show this is all a waste of time. I find that because they're ignorant in how to do decent research, they tend to have terrible sources. That goes with the cherry picking of data. Like they don't use major sources, like major archaeological sources. They always use these weird sort of secondary archaeology sources, and then they'll talk about these sources, meaning various like academic papers and archaeologists and stuff. And they'll act like these are the main sources for something they're talking about. But if you're a real archaeologist, you're like, that's not the main source. That's like one that's way out on planet Pluto. You're not dealing with the real facts. And then, of course, they also just lie. There's a lot of lying. And we can hem and haw on, are they lying or is it willful ignorance? I don't care. I don't care at this point, you guys. Let's go with another scientific term. They're bullshitting. It's that simple. There's nothing more to it. These are bullshit grifters, right? Who have, for whatever reason, found a little part of the world that makes them feel good, right? A little part of the world where they otherwise wouldn't really be listened to, but they're able to do their little dance here. And for whatever reason, they seem to get enough people that they can kind of keep doing it. And I get it. Like if they've just figured something out, whether it be a lot of this is in sort of social media world, where they've gotten some sort of following and have gotten some sort of group of people to listen to them. It does seem to me, though, that the Cosmic Summit as an organization or as a destination is faltering, right? It does seem like it's falling apart because how can it keep going? Because they don't have any new research. They're telling the same stories they've told ever since 1880 or before. How's next year going to be any different than this year? They'll have another movie on Atlantis. But I thought the last movie just told us where Atlantis was. I thought because they announced that this is telling us where Atlantis is. But what about when that comes out to be untrue? What about that? Do we as an audience go, wait, you're grifting us? Like, I thought you told us this. Say what it is, friends, the clown show. If we talk about this clown show, or the crueler yet more truthful term of circle jerk, if we're honest about this circle jerk, we see that it's, as any circle jerk, a bunch of wasted energy. And the wasted energy part, in seriousness, you guys, it does make me sad, although I'm in balance at the same time, since there's so much grift. Like, I get really mad at the grift, at the just stealing of money, of just fraudulent taking of money, of lying. But it would be cool if these people actually angled towards real research. Again, something like the Comet Interest Group, if those guys like did real research, if they stuck to it and stopped just trying to prove that there was some super civilization, stop with the black mat stuff and all that crap, and just started to look at real research, at real finds, at real geology, at real excavations from that time, real fossils, all that stuff, and started putting it together, that would be time well spent. Like, I would be really into that. And I guess last, at the end, I would say two things to the Cosmic Summit. Thing number one, here's a little note on if you want to make Cosmic Summit better. Stop using the term UAP when you mean UFO. Everyone knows what UFO is, and UFOs sound cool, unidentified flying object. There's been a movement in pseudoarchaeology world to use the term UAP, which I believe first stood for unidentified aerial phenomena. Now it stands for unidentified anomalous phenomena. Terrible. UAP, that term is horrible. Go back to good old UFOs, friends. My second thing. This is the way to keep the Cosmic Summit alive. Lean into the stupid. Lean into the dopiness. Start selling alien t-shirts. Start selling some alien antenna I can put on my head. Serve drinks called the Cosmic Cosmopolitan. You know what I mean? And just have some music, have people laughing. Like, I want to just be hanging out like with my wife and going, hey, you want to go chill out at the Cosmic Summit? Like, that could be fun. That's the way to save it, right? To make light of it. Then some people will go. Because if word on the street is like, yeah, they were full of shit, but it was fun, at least you'll get your grift on. And with that, I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the Pseudoarchaeology podcast. Please like and subscribe wherever you like and subscribe. And if you have questions for me, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, feel free to reach out using the links below or go to my YouTube channel, Kinkella Teaches Archaeology. See you guys next time.
The Archaeology Podcast Network is 10 years old this year. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy, our social media coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht, and our chief editor is Rachel Roden. The Archaeology Podcast Network was co-founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle in 2014 and is part of Culturo Media and DigTech LLC.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.